but I did want to brag that she is in Virginia Beach, and she is the Adapted Physical Educator of the Year for Vapor. Yay, go Jen. Okay, Jen, it's all yours.
All right, can you guys hear me okay? Just want to make sure. Yes, thumbs up, okay. Awesome, so like Sheila said, I am Jen Vetter. I am a 9th grade health and PE teacher and adapted PE teacher at Bayside High School, go Marlins, in Virginia Beach. And today we are going to talk about using the responsive classroom approach in your adapted PE class. But before we get started, I want to take a minute and kind of like get to know who we got here in the Zoom. So please choose from one of the following prompts: a mirror, what is something new in your life that you'd like to share? Or a window, what is something happening in our world or the community that you want to share with us? So we're going to go ahead and take about 3 minutes to do that now. Awesome. Look at all this amazing, great stuff going on in your lives. This is so fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. Lots of just anniversaries and birthdays and fun things. And I'm just so glad you guys took the time to share that with me. So before we get started, I want to give you an opportunity to win something. So if you scan this QR code with your phone, It'll take you to a Google Doc. If you don't want to pull your phone out, I totally feel you. I'm going to put the link in the chat. If I can see it, hang on a second. Here you go. And it'll take you to a Google Doc. And on this Google Doc, it'll give you an opportunity to highlight keywords as we go through the presentation. And when you are, when we're all done, you'll have an opportunity to email it to me and I'll enter your name to win an Amazon gift card. So I'll give everybody a second to do that if you want to play along with us. All right, so here's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to talk to you about laying the groundwork for a successful adaptive PE class. It's how I did it. Is it the only way? It's just the way that we've made it work at my school. And so I thought I would share with you some of the things that we've done. And then we're going to talk a little bit about responsive classroom and what that's all about. And then I'm going to show you how this really is connected to adaptive PE. You're probably even going to see the connections before I even get there. We're going to go over some of the guiding practices of responsive classroom. And this starts with something called morning meeting. And then I'm going to break down what a daily plan can look like for you in adaptive PE. And then we'll talk a little bit about some of the expected outcomes from using this way of teaching. All right, so in my world at Bayside High School, I have a co-teacher. And so I work with a special education teacher who has been teaching for 30 years. And it's really made our class very successful because he might not know a lot about PE. I mean, he does now because we've been working together for about 4 years. But his what he brings to our partnership is his ability to really make these relationships with our special education students. Most of them are in his inclusion class or they're on his caseload. So he already has established relationships with these students and their parents. And so that really helps us form a really good team for our students. And it tends to be a little bit of a master schedule nightmare when we first started because we had to be partnered at the same time. So he was able to get an additional planning block, and that planning block takes place during my adapted class. So we work together to make it all happen. So we can plan together and we can conduct class together at the same time. One of the other things that's really important in any class, especially in an adaptive PE class, is frequent parent contact. Now, we do this annually with IEP reviews, but that's just really not enough feedback for parents. And so we do home visits, emails, phone calls, and the two of us work together to do it. So like getting a call from me would be the same thing as getting a call from Mr. Donnell, who's my co-teacher. And one of the biggest things that we try to do in our class is to make things very simple for our students. And of course, this year, as all of you know, proved very challenging with our whole hybrid situation, virtual learners, in-person learners. It was out of control. In Virginia Beach, we went to a 4x4 format, which meant that my adaptive PE class wasn't scheduled until the beginning of February. And so we spent August and September going to students' houses, teaching students and parents on how to use Zoom. And that was like one of the biggest hurdles we had to overcome. I'm sure many of you can relate to that. But it also gave us an opportunity to drop off some PE equipment for our virtual learners. And I'm going to talk to you about that in a little bit. But we use Schoology in Virginia Beach. And so I wanted to make it like a 2-click process for my students. So they click on their class in Schoology, and then they clicked on the picture. And that picture took them right to Zoom. I hyperlinked it. So we really wanted to make it like just as simple as possible. And so for this year, especially, that is how we set that up. So the PE equipment that I talked about a little bit. So I really was kind of scratching my head, as I'm sure many of you were, trying to figure out how I was going to teach all these kids in all these different places. And so over the summer, I got with some of our community partners and I created an Amazon wish list, and they fully funded all of the boxes for my students. And we put in a whole bunch of different equipment. And we also included these mood boards because I wanted students to kind of start seeing the tie between physical activity and their mental and emotional health. And so each student, in person or at home, had a box of PE equipment that was theirs and theirs alone. And here is an example of some of the equipment that we included in the boxes. And what's important to know is that depending on what a student was working on, as far as an IEP goal or something that I knew that they had been struggling with maybe in a year past, I would include the different equipment in them, in their boxes. So some kids might get like a very light set of hand weights. Some kids might get like stretchy bands to work on flexibility, but this is generally the equipment that everybody received. And I will continue to use these boxes next year because what I found was that students really took some pride and ownership of their equipment, more so than I'd ever seen in the past. And they really wanted to take care of it. So we were honing in on a lot of those like self-management, responsible decision-making skills. And so we collected everything back up at the end of the year, and we will use them again next year. And of course, given our situation this year, it made it so much easier for cleaning and organizing all of the equipment. So what I'd like to start with is talking about what responsive classroom is. And so I'm going to throw it out to you guys. You can type it in the chat. You can unmute. What do you know about responsive classroom, if anything? Has anybody heard the term before? So Sarah says she's good. She's all in it. Sometimes, right, Leslie, that's good. Everyone, yeah, has a voice. Absolutely. Okay, Rob, thanks. Yeah, and a lot of times elementary teachers are a lot more familiar with it than secondary teachers. In the secondary world, we tend to use something called responsive advisory, but elementary really does a great job with this. And yeah, I see Margaret put in, it's about building a community, absolutely. And so I know the term's been floating around, it's one of those things. And so what I'm really gonna be focusing on is how responsive classroom is that fusion of social and emotional learning with academic learning to really create an optimal environment for success, right? And what this is based on, yeah, student-centered, absolutely, is that what we teach is just as important as how we teach it. And so I'd like to use the phrase, the mood in the room, right? Like what's the vibe you're throwing out there and what's the impact it's having on your students? And it's all about modeling behaviors that you want to see back, right? And one of the biggest pieces that you need to consider as we work through this is how can I use this to bring out the best in each child in my classroom? So what I'm going to share with you is how I've used responsive classroom in the adaptive PE world. So it's going to look a little different than what it might look like in a second grade class or a fifth grade class. So there's 4 key domains, and they are engaging academics, positive community, effective classroom management, and developmental awareness. And so when we talk about engaging academics, we want to really prepare lessons that are interactive, developmentally appropriate, engaging, and fun, right? Your lessons should have purpose and are designed to really engage your learners, because we want students to be eager to participate, and our lessons need to be connected to what they need and what they're interested in. And again, positive community, it's that vibe in the room, right? We want to create a space where students feel safe, valued, and part of the community. And part of this includes routines and structures to help maintain focus and give direction to the day. And building this positive community is really important to increasing student engagement. And of course, as we all know, as physical educators, rules and protocols and procedures are so important to the success of any class, especially in the gym. But the key with responsive classroom is that these rules are student-centered and easy to manage. So regardless of what your physical space is, virtual or in person, in the classroom or in the gym, there are rules to follow and specific things, and students know the specific things that are expected of them every day. And of course, developmental awareness, right? You have to know your students. And this is especially true with special ed students who have IEPs and that have specific things they need to work on in your class. So lessons need to be developed, not only to assist in achieving these goals, but to allow for observation of student development. These 4 domains. And then what I really want you to do is think about what we do as physical educators, right? And like when I saw this, I had that light bulb moment, right? Like, oh, we do this all the time. We do this every day. Like, why did someone finally put a name to this, right? So all of our lessons in PE are interactive and active, right? We want students to be engaged and moving. That's all we really want them to be doing. And we give high quality, relevant feedback that's genuinely focused on individual students. We know that routines in our gym are paramount to success. And we want our students to come into our classrooms feeling part of the community. And we want them to enjoy all these movement opportunities that we've prepared for them. And of course, lessons have to be scaffolded in a way that builds upon what students already know and can do. Like, we're not just going to throw a soccer ball out and say, go play soccer, before we even teach them how to handle or dribble the ball. So I'm hoping that you're starting to see the connection, and we're going to dive into it a little bit more. But this is the first thing here, right? Like, change is scary. Everybody kind of likes to do what we've done. It's the best way. I know I've done it for 20 years. And so it's hard sometimes to kind of change the mindset of what you have been doing to what you could be doing for your students. But when it's what's better for students, we really have to step out of our comfort zones and be willing to try something new to get something better out of them. So we're going to dive a little bit more into this, and we're going to talk about feedback. So when I say high quality feedback, right, we are way past just saying, oh, good job, right, kicking that ball. Rather, we really need to point out specific things that a student is doing or not doing, and so they can do something with it. So like, for example, Devontae, I love how high you're getting your knees in our high knee exercise. I can see them up over your belly button, right? Like he knows that he's doing something correct. Or Alexis, can you try to get your arms up over your head during our jumping jacks so your fingers touch together? That's something she can do with, like do something with, right? So that kind of feedback is very important for our students. And of course, routines are so important in any classroom, but especially in a special education environment. And what we have found is that students are more focused and less anxious when they know what to expect every day. It makes sense, right? When they feel free to express themselves and understand that their feelings and opinions matter, you're going to get more out of them in class. And of course, any classroom should be welcoming, right? Students should feel it's their classroom. It doesn't matter if it's the gym, a self-contained classroom, or a regular education classroom. Students need to feel valued, and it needs to be a safe space. Remember, it may be the only safe place they have all day. And so we have to remember what kinds of trauma our students may be bringing with them into our classroom, especially students who may not be able to express themselves really well because of a specific disability. So for them, it's going to be all about how they feel in your class, not necessarily what it looks like. So this feeling is something you kind of have to develop and nurture throughout the year. So in an adapted PE class, you're going to have students with specific challenges that need to be addressed. So for some, it could be a behavior related issue. For others, it could be physical challenges. It may be both, right? So the IEPs are really your framework for your instruction. And I want to add that like any activity you do with your general education class can be modified in some way to support the needs of your adapted PE students. You just really have to kind of think outside the box a little bit. And so providing students with activities that meet them where they are and can be scaffolded to help them progress are going to keep them engaged, but still challenge them. And some students in your class will have a specific goal on their IEP that needs to be met. And I know you guys have been talking about IEPs, or you're going to be talking about IEPs, so I'm going to add a little bit in here about IEPs. What you need to know is that in Virginia Beach, adapted PE is considered a related service on the IEP. So be sure you review your students' IEPs to see where adapted PE falls in. And again, in Virginia Beach, we also have adapted PE itinerants. Rob is one of them. And they travel from school to assist students and teachers on helping the students reach their goals. And they pop into like a regular ed class or an adapted PE class and help the student or the teacher. But not every student who receives adapted PE may have a goal on their IEP. It could be adapted PE is necessary to simply provide modifications, adaptations, or suggestions for students with certain disabilities. And so as the PE or adapted PE teacher, your role is to support the student in achieving a specific goal if they have one, but more importantly, to develop lessons that can be useful in supporting all students on their way to achieving their goals. But ultimately, your role is to provide a safe, positive, engaging environments for students to learn. And that's kind of where responsive classroom comes in. And here's an example of an IEP goal. And what you need to know about this is that it's written in the SMART goal format, right? Because that's going to provide clear direction for both the teacher and the student. And it's also going to give us a way to measure progress. So it's important when a quality goal is written that it does include the SMART formula. All right, so what I would like to do now is kind of start showing you what a daily routine would look like using responsive classroom in the adapted PE world. And so morning meeting is the first part of this approach. And morning meeting can look different depending on what kind of classroom you're in, elementary versus secondary. If you remember, I mentioned that secondary levels tend to use something called responsive advisory. Same idea, just a little bit different. Morning meeting can look different for general education students versus special education students. But the purpose is really to kind of set the tone for the day and give you as the teacher an opportunity to model the behaviors you expect back. And so the purpose of this rest of this presentation is to kind of show you how I made that work this year, how it can look next year, and to know that you can modify this to fit the needs of your group in any way whatsoever. So this is just one way that I've used it. So we start morning meeting because it sets the tone, right? We want to establish our expectations and reaffirm them every single day. And so this is how I do it. It's a very simple slide, class expectations. It has a 3-part premise: use your head, use your heart, use your hands to be moving, right? And so we say it every day: be respectful, be kind, and be moving. It's not complicated, right? It's to the point, and it lets students know, all right, I need to hone in my behaviors for class time. The next thing is that we really want to establish a safe place for your learners. And so morning meeting provides this kind of routine that is great in reducing anxiety for students because they know what's coming and they know what to expect. And so we cover every week, we have like a different little theme, and we talk about it every day. And it really gives students an opportunity to recall and reflect the kind of the information we've been discussing because we go over it every day. And it gives us a kind of a theme for our week. So this would be my morning message slide. And we would go over what the day of the week is. And then, you know, we can kind of do a little bit of a check-in. How's everybody doing? And then we go over what our fitness term of the week is. And you'll see here that I wrote core training, okay? Now understand this was in May. And so back when we first started class, we were doing more simple things like what is our fitness word of the day? Or what is the word of the day? And we kind of just built up to different ideas and concepts throughout our time together. And so what happens is we taught a little discussion about what core training, what does that mean? How do we do that? Like, what is that all about? And, you know, what muscles are involved in your core? And we have a little discussion. Sometimes students will know, sometimes they won't. And it's a great opportunity to kind of start talking about it. But then what happens is we will reinforce this throughout the class by doing different physical activities. The next part of our morning meeting includes greeting students. And we find that when you greet a student by name, they love the individual attention, right? And in my class, each greeting is personalized for students. So it's a great opportunity to kind of let their little personality shine through. As an example, this year I had 8 to 9 virtual learners and 4 to 5 in-person learners. And I saw somebody just got thinking. So it really, I wanted to have a way to really connect with everybody because it was hard not having all of the kids in my physical space, as you guys well know. So here's our greeting slide. And so we would put this slide up and students would have an opportunity to choose how they wanted to be greeted. And so we'd go around the room and the Zoom and greet each student by name. And so I had one student who like inevitably chose fist bump, like that was his thing every single day. It didn't matter. And even when I saw him in the hallway during the day, it would be a fist bump, right? And then I had another student who like really genuinely identified with the double wave monkey. Rob knows her. And so like, if you ever met Paris, you would be like, oh my gosh, that is so her. And so every day she'd come at me with the double wave monkey, and it just was so fitting for her little personality. And then I had another student who would choose something different every day. But really, it's just a fun way to connect, kind of like see the students where they're at and how they're doing. And then we would just move on with class. So the next piece after we greet each other is we check in with each other to see how everybody's feeling. And so sometimes on good days, I would have what I like to call a happy house, right? Everybody chooses happy as their feeling of the day. And that's great and that's wonderful. And you kind of have an idea of where you're headed, your class is going to go. But sometimes students choose sad or angry. And when this happens, that's when you pause, like you push pause on everything. And you give students an opportunity to share what's bothering them if they want to. And so we'll chat about their feelings and give them legitimacy. And then we talk about how we might be able to help them throughout the day. Sometimes a student is just cranky or upset. That's just the way it is, happens to everybody. Or they may not be able to put their feelings into words. And so that's why having these little mood boards that are included in their PE box was effective, because they could just point to what they were identifying with. And the reason why these work so well is because in like 3 minutes, you now have a better feel for what's happening in your classroom. Maybe you need to spend more time with one student. Maybe you need to pump another student up because they're having a bad day. Whatever it is, you would read on the mood in the room, and you can really navigate whatever lesson it is that you want to teach better. And so here's an example of the slide I would pop up, and we would just go around the room in the Zoom and talk about how we were feeling. So using this approach really helps us incorporate SEL. And class hasn't even started yet. Like, we haven't even gotten into any of the learning, right? But we've already addressed a whole bunch of competencies. You know, we're working on self-awareness by students checking in with their feelings. We're working on social awareness, right? And that's a really big concept for a lot of students with special needs to like be able to develop, right? And so we focus on relationships and building empathy among our students. We're talking about self-management, waiting their turn, being able to handle their emotions. And we're working on making wise decisions in class. And so all of this is based on those expectations and the norms that we have set as a class. So we've covered three of the 4 parts of morning meeting, right? We talked about the morning message, where students get the thought for the day and what we're going to be covering throughout the week. We greeted each other, and we worked on sharing how we feel. And so the next piece involves actually getting into movement, right? And so this is our group activity piece. And this is where, in my class, we start our warm-ups for the day. In a traditional classroom, it may be a worksheet or a discussion. The teacher may read a passage from a book to get the students engaged. Regardless, it's an all-inclusive activity that gets kids together as a group. And in my class, that's when we start moving. So what I would like to invite you to do is to join me in our little brain boost group activity, because I know you guys have been sitting around all day. So we are going to do this little wheel of exercises. So please, let's just take a little break, get the blood flowing from our bums back up to our brains, and let's do a couple of exercises. It looks like 10 backwards arm circles. Let's move those arms. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's see what's next. It looks like 10 high knees. Awesome. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, my favorite, 10 air punches. Let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost there, feeling better already. 10 calf raises. Awesome. Got my Birks on though, so I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Almost there. Well, those felt really good, by the way. 10 backwards arm circle. I can't remember, did we do forward or backwards? I don't know. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then lastly, 10 Frankensteins. These are always difficult because my hamstrings are so tight. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Awesome. Thank you for playing along with us. And what I want to note about this is that you can choose anything, right? So this was just one that we did when we were standing. I also do warm-ups that are completely seated because I have students who are in wheelchairs or can't, who just can't get around a lot. And so I always try to make sure the activity is as inclusive as possible. And, you know, anything that we do, let's say it's a standing activity, then I make sure that I have a modification for my students who need it, and we can just talk about it right away. And it'll get to the point where students start to learn to modify on their own, which is ideally what you want. And so this was just one example, but I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of other ones that you can use as well. So before we move any further, talk to me about where you're at on your learning journey. Are you a 1, a 2, or a 3? Just go ahead and put your number in the chat. Awesome. So it looks like all of you are 1s and 2s, which is fabulous. If a question pops up, just hold on to it because we're going to have an opportunity at the end to talk about it, but I should write it down so that way you don't forget, because if you're anything like me, it's already gone out of your brain before you even like get it all out in words. Okay, so we've done morning meeting. Now let's get into the meat of things, right? Let's talk about what the lesson portion looks like in a class. Now, remember, this year I had that hybrid situation going on, as I'm sure many of you did. And so I had to be digital in order to effectively reach all my students. But next year, it's not going to be that way, fingers crossed. And so I'm still going to be able to use all these concepts. How simple would it be to laminate a card or to put things up in the gym that address all of these different things? So continue to think about how this can be modified for you in your situation. The biggest thing about movement is safety, right? Safety first. This is stressed every day in class, especially because I had students in different environments. And so I couldn't really manage everybody, but I knew that I could at least address it every day. And so we wanted to make sure that students knew that they had to have a safe space to move, right? So they couldn't just be like sitting at the kitchen table. They needed to have a little bit of room, and that there had to be no objects around that they could hit with their arm or their leg, and then mom would get mad, right? And that you needed to learn to control and manage your body during class. So this slide would go up every day. And I would add that there's a gentleman on Twitter, his name is Ryan Armstrong, and he graciously shared a ton of interactive movement opportunities back like in August, September. And so he graciously said it was okay to use some of his stuff. So he does it for free, like he doesn't ask you to pay anything. Anyway, Ryan Armstrong, he's on Twitter. If you don't follow him, he's amazing. So anyway, some of these ideas I got from him, and then I modified them to fit the needs of my learners. All right, so the first part of class has to do with fitness time. And so for fitness time, I always start with a clearly defined learning target. And so while my population of students may not be able to read the learning target, they can certainly listen to me as I restate what we will be doing for our workout. And it's important that students know what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, and why we need to do it. And this year, because of our situation, I chose a lot of workouts that were interactive, had tons of music, but still provided different challenges for my students. And I wanted things that were going to capture their attention. So here are some examples of some of the things that we did, and I'm providing you guys links to everything that I've used, and so you'll have all of it and places to go to get these resources yourself. And so there's a whole bunch of different activities that we can do. Fortnite Dance Off was probably one of their favorites, and this one was really funny because they really loved this one. A lot of the kids had played Fortnite or messed around with it a little bit, and so they knew who the characters were. And I thought this activity was great because it offered choice for the students, right? So they had to choose which character they wanted to be and then do that dance that character did. And you can see from my little people down there in the end, they really enjoyed it. They had a lot of fun, and they were super engaged. And granted, I was completely blessed. All my students, except for one, Rob knows who I'm talking about, would keep their camera on during class and were absolutely engaged and talking and interactive and wanting to participate. I was very fortunate. I didn't have that in my regular education classes. So this was really like the highlight of my day. These students are 9th through 12th grade. And so their ages range anywhere from 14 to 21, 22. And so sometimes when we had these choice activities that we would do in class, sometimes the kids would just do what I did because like maybe it was too much choice. And sometimes they would do their own thing, which is totally great too. But the option is there for them, and who doesn't want a choice? So after fitness time, we moved into skill time. And skill time would be a variety of different things. It would involve some kind of equipment though, right? They got those PE boxes. So we wanted to use some equipment. And so for this particular one, if you recall, on our morning message, we talked about core training. And so this was involved in that day where we would do push-ups, curl-ups, and hold the plank. But the challenge came in that students had to build little cup towers. And note, if you can only buy one piece of equipment, the speed stack cups are a huge hit, and you can do so many different things with them. You can incorporate them into so many exercises and really, really engage the students on a couple of different levels. So every time they would do a push-up, they'd put a cup down, and they do another push-up, put another cup down. And then the third push-up would be the tower. And so they would have races, right? So could the virtual kids do it first? Could the in-person kids do it first? And how was their form? And were they able to do it? So those are things I can observe as their teacher, and I can give feedback to them. You know, when they're, for example, doing the plank, is their butt too high up in the air? Can they pull their rear end down so they're more in a straight line? So it's an observation time for me as well when they're working on these little challenges, and they're fun and they're engaging. And another thing we did was a hitting challenge. Because everybody had equipment, I wanted to make sure it was safe. So we did birdies and badminton rackets, and students would have challenges to see how many times they could hit the birdie with the badminton thing. Super simple concept, but it's really hard. I don't know if any of you have tried it. Like it was really hard to do. So some of these kids were like all over it, and they were doing the hitting and challenging each other. So like Devontae was like, I just got 15. And then Alexis online was like, I got 2, you know, so they were kind of communicating with each other, which was really fun to see them engaging that way. And another one that we did was juggling. So scarves for juggling are ideal. That'd be another piece of equipment that are really helpful, and they're not very expensive. But the kids love that. And there's a lot of different videos out there that you can use to help guide you in how to like scaffold teaching juggling, or you can just like throw them all out there and see what happens. But yeah, Rob's right, plastic bags work too. It's super easy, you don't even need to pay for anything. But the important thing to note with skill time as it relates to responsive classroom is that it uses an approach called guided discovery. And so this technique is used to get students interested in what you're doing, but it allows them to kind of explore and experiment with the equipment without fear of getting it wrong. So you give them an opportunity to kind of play with things a little bit. Say, hey, we're going to pull this out, and they take a look at it and they feel it and they touch it and they see what it's used for. Sometimes they know, I know exactly what to do with this, and sometimes they don't and they need guidance. But the idea is that there's no worry about, oh, I did it wrong, or I'm doing it wrong, or I'm not as good as so-and-so, right? Because everybody has the opportunity for this exploratory learning opportunity, part of the class. And part of this guided discovery also includes cleaning up and putting away the equipment and caring for it properly. When I say cleaning up, I'm not like talking about spraying it all down. I'm talking about put it in the dirty bin. That was this year. But that it's their equipment and they're caring for it properly. And this is why I said I will use boxes again next year, because kids really wanted to keep their stuff in good shape. So after we've done our exercise, our heavy duty exercise, we kind of move into that fitness term of the week. But what I want to point out is that we didn't just start with fitness terms. We started with like words of the day, and we kept it really basic. And while a student may not know what the word imagine means, they might know like that it starts with the letter I. And so we can kind of start our discussion that way. And in addition, my co-teacher and I would spend a couple of minutes back when we talked about our morning message, exploring the word imagine and what does that mean and how does that look to you? But when we get to this part of class, there is a wonderful resource out there called Nalini Kids. And I'm gonna share that with you in the resources I share with you. But this organization called Nalini Kids creates SEL focused mini little workouts. They're about 2 minutes, 30 seconds long. There's a focus with a word, and then there's an exercise that supports that word. And so it's really neat because students can start to kind of put 2 and 2 together, and it's another movement opportunity. So like I said, we kind of move into the fitness terms after a while. We talked about core training, we talked about endurance, and I'm going to share all that with you at the end, but I'm pretty sure it's Nalini Kids. And my classes are about 80 minutes long, but in reality, this entire process took about 35 minutes, 40 minutes to work through. So we also wanted to make sure that we included information for students on how their bodies work, just like I would with my general education students. So we talked about the major bones of the body, and we also addressed the big muscle groups. And so how we would introduce this is we would put this slide up and then point to where the muscle is and then ask students, hey, do you know what this muscle is? Sometimes they know, absolutely straight up, oh, it's a hamstring, I know where that is. Show me where it is. And so then all students have to show me where their hamstring is. But the key here is to reinforce this with some kind of activity. So they're putting the word to a movement. So when we say hamstrings, or we talked about glutes, I would ask the students, hey, do you know any exercise we can do that would help strengthen these muscles? Sometimes they would know. Somebody might say squats. And so we'll do squats, right? We'll do like 10 of them. And so now we have an opportunity. Students are counting. Students are thinking through how words are formed. They can look at the letter. They know it's the letter H. Now they're realizing where different body parts are. And so we'll spend a whole week on specific body parts, just so they kind of start to see how that their bodies, the exercises we're doing are impacting the different parts of their bodies. And of course, nutrition is vitally important. And so when we talk about nutrition, I wanted to keep it super simple. I always include a picture because students might not be able to read the word, but they certainly know, oh, that's an apple. I know what that is. And then we talk about what it is and what it does for you and why it's important. Hey, do you have one of those in your house? Go get it for me if you have an apple right now. Oh, you don't have any? Ask mom or dad to run to the store. When the next time they go to the grocery store, maybe they can pick up some apples for you. So then now we're talking, there's a conversation that can happen too. Avocados were one of my favorite ones because when we talked about avocados, I would put this slide up and I'll be like, all right, does anybody know what food this is? And my girl Alexis, every single day, Rob, I don't know if you were in class when this was going on, but every single day would holler out, and I mean like scream at the top of her lungs, it's guacamole, Mrs. Vetter. That's what it is. And it just made me giggle. Like I totally just lost focus all the time. But hey, I'm okay with that. It does make guacamole. Like, all right, that's good. I'm okay with that. So it was an opportunity. She knew what it was. Granted, she's eating guacamole, all right, but she knows what now she knows where it comes from. Exactly, they get the concept, right? So that was the other piece of our class. And now at this point, we're getting ready to kind of tidy things up. We're getting ready to finish stuff up. And so it's important to recognize students for their performance in class. So this is one of those concepts of responsive classroom that we can't forget, right? It really reinforces helping make students feel significant, right? And that they matter. And it also gives us a chance to help students strive to become the student that gets recognized. They want that recognition, right? They want to be noticed. And so this gives us a chance to really recognize everyone over the course of a week or 2 weeks and to acknowledge their hard work. And so we would say, all right, Sheila, you are our student of the day. And then everybody would get a round of applause. And we've got the in-person learners and the virtual learners all congratulating each other and feeling good about what's happening. And then to end class, I always want to do some kind of reflection, right? I do this in all my other classes. I think it's important that we do it in all our classes. And so sometimes we'll talk about, a specific thing we did in class. Sometimes we'll talk about how they can use what we did in class to help someone else. Sometimes we'll talk about how they can be good citizens in the rest of their classes for the day, regardless of what it is. It's just a way to kind of end on a positive note. And we would go around the room to each student individually and ask the question. Except for Fridays. Fridays, super important. That's our attitude of gratitude. This is where we take a minute to be thankful for something. And so it's vitally important that we teach this, that we always remember that we have something we can be thankful for. And so with my students, sometimes it might just be, I'm thankful for mom, right? And, or I'm thankful for a roof over my head, or I'm thankful for a specific teacher. Whatever it is, it's another opportunity for students to practice speaking. You never know, you may have students like I did in my class who one of their goals is to be able to speak in complete sentences. So now you have an opportunity for that. And it's just always great to remember, what you're thankful for, regardless of who you are. And then of course we say goodbye, right? This is it, we're signing off. And so we would wave at each other, say goodbye by name, right? Again, that individual focus on each student. And sometimes, not gonna lie, this could take anywhere from like 2 to 5 minutes, and it may end up with me ending the Zoom call because everybody is like, goodbye, 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 like over and over and over again. But it's great, right? They love seeing each other. They wanna stand in, like the camera angle so everybody at home can see them and all that kind of stuff. So that kind of puts together exactly what a day in the life would look like. So what can we expect from using this kind of approach in your classroom or your gym? So independent research really tells us that using this approach is associated with higher academic learning, improved teacher-student interactions, and higher quality instruction, because your instruction now is more student-driven and is tailored specifically for meeting the needs of your students, socially, emotionally, as well as academically and physically. And that's most important in an adapted PE class. And I'm gonna say this year proved really hard, if not impossible, to capture data on students' goals on their IEPs. And so one of the things that I kind of focused on, which is why I used this process, was to observe improvements in behavior. I know that my students have grown emotionally over the course of this year, which means everything given how crazy this year was. And it's going to set us up for success in the fall because we're going to have some behavior issues, seeing as some students haven't been in the building since March 2020. And so that's going to be a huge adjustment, from doing school in their living room and their jammies to coming back in. So expected outcomes include improved student behavior, right? Teacher, I am modeling the behavior I expect from my students, and students are having a better experience because it's personalized, right? My learning is tailored to them. I'm acknowledging them and recognize them. Participation is going to increase. They want to participate. They want to be shouted out at, right? It's kind of like getting a like on Instagram. If you see any teenager, boy, those likes mean everything. It's the same thing in here, right? Students want to be seen. They want to be noticed. So give them the opportunity to be noticed. You're going to see improvement in SEL, right? You're creating a positive, joyful, and caring community that's inclusive in nature. And you are not leaving anybody out, right? You are making a place for them to feel safe. And so they can share more about who they are and maybe what kind of goals they have. And of course, your classroom management will also increase. And the ability to manage things will be good because students are learning how to manage their emotions better and their behaviors. And you have provided them comfort because they know what's going to come. They know what's expected. And so what is this going to look like next year, right? Like, I'm sure you guys have all been in conversations with other people. Like, God, I hope we are back in the building next year. I am just hopeful that I don't have to teach to a computer screen and a group of students standing in front of me. Yeah, right. It's going to look awesome. Oh, right. Because I suffer from something I fondly refer to as the Zoom sweats. And those of you who have had the pleasure of teaching in the hybrid environment probably know what I'm talking about. It's like everything goes wrong, and you don't have technology and you don't have sound or you're muted, right? And it always winds up with somebody sweating, like me, generally, kind of like now, right? When something doesn't go right. But in all seriousness, we have to think about making these adjustments for next year because this year's been really hard on us as educators and as our students. And while we might be going back to that traditional classroom, which is fabulous, we really have to take into account what our students have been through and think about what they may have reacted well to and how we can build upon that to improve the quality of our teaching. So I believe using this approach will continue to prove beneficial for my students. And in my case, it's going to continue the work on the social and emotional competencies that we've been working on all year. And, by the time next year rolls around, there are going to be some students, depending on, where you are at, who haven't been in the building for like 17 months, right? So there's going to be, like I said before, some behavior issues and adjustments to getting back into the swing of things. So having something like this in place or your modification version of it will really help your students get acclimated to being back in school. All right, so that is the meat of what I've got. I've got a couple more things to share with you, but before we do that, take a second and reflect on your thinking and learning. And tell me in the chat what sticks with you the most about what we've talked about today. absolutely. Yeah, you're so right. And I saw a comment in the chat about using this or that. I'm going to share with you tons of YouTube videos. People have already done it. You don't need to do it. Steal their ideas, right? So good. I'm so glad that you guys found something in here that you might be able to use. And even if it's not everything, if it's just something, that's one step closer to building those relationships, right? And so here's what I'm going to share with you now. I'm going to put this link in the chat for you. And this is a link to all of the resources. And if you scroll down here to the third page, here, let me put this in there for you. Everyone. If you scroll down to the last page, it's the full presentations right here. And then if you click here, it's my Google Drive folder. And all of this is for you. So Fit 5 activities are Special Olympics activities that are already pre-done. They're little workout videos and lesson ideas that Special Olympics has put out. And I've put a whole bunch together in the folder for you. Subject of Self, this is that Nalini Kids program that I talked about. And these are all of the different lesson ideas. So you can grab a word of the day, you can grab whatever you want, but they're all right here. And if you click on a lesson, just so you see how this works, they also give you emotional workouts, right? So they give you a video, they give you a term, and then they give you a question that you can talk to your students about. I love Nalini Kids. I found it by accident, but it is really just awesome. And then the last thing in here is a link to tons of different videos I've used. And while you may be back in the regular building next year, you know, you can watch these videos to get ideas for little workouts you can do, or you can still use a projector and do the videos yourself. Easy way. But there's a ton that I have in here that were really good. And links to like folks that have created a whole bunch of them. So you can just click on there and then like subscribe to what they've got. So I just want to thank you so much for my time, for giving me your time today. And I love presenting at JMU with CTA. It's always a good time. Everybody is always so nice. If you have finished your little checklist, please email it to me at jevetter@vbschools.com, and I will enter you to win a Amazon gift card. You can always follow me on Twitter. I'm always on there. I love posting stuff that's going on in class, but it's such a great resource. If you're not on Twitter, you need to get on there. Everybody shares things, especially in our health and PE world. Like, they don't want your money. They just want to make sure you have good experiences with your students. And I can absolutely type my email in the chat.
And so I would like to say thank you. She is a rock star. Everything you guys are saying is true, but don't go away because we have a part 2. Jen and Jillian are going to share a little bit on unified health and PE, but let's give you, it's 11:36. Just stand up for a couple of minutes, stretch your legs, and then we'll transition to the next part. And they have some really cool information to share. So just hang in there for a second as we switch over to the next slide deck.
Thank you so much. If you have any questions, just shoot me an email.
And you can ask questions while we transition if you need, but I think Jen might need some water or a bio break.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah, please, if you have a question, shoot it in the chat, send me an email. I will totally get back to you.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm gonna run to the restroom.
You do that. Turn off your camera.
Yeah. We want to start with the video and then we'll do the Jamboard afterwards.
Oh, I thought we were gonna start with the Jamboard.
That's fine. The Jamboard's fine.
Okay.
Checking.
Okay. All right. I will get on that in 1 sec.
Okay, perfect. Take your break.
It's a lot of talking. Good for her. She's fantastic. That's why she's the teacher of the year.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure if we were going to start with the Jamboard. Sheila, I'm going to try to link her stuff into her folder in the drive so that when they go in there, they can just click on it and it's there.
Yeah, because people were asking for things, and I think one-stop shop. Am I surprised? No.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's Jen Better. She's awesome.
I'm going to work on
that. Can someone tell me how I'm supposed to email this to her since it's in Google and she's not in our county, so I can send it or share it directly with her?
Are you talking about her contest?
Yes.
hang on till she comes back because that was kind of a surprise.
Okay.
Okay.
Take a picture of it. You can take a picture of it and send me the picture. You can download it as a Word doc and send that to me. Whatever works for you.
Oh, okay.
I will accept anything.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then when this part's over, we'll put the last survey up, and then we will hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. So whenever you guys are ready, we'll get rolling.
My 7-year-old just put on his bicycle helmet and is using a plastic rocker to attempt to slide down the stairs. I think I should stop him.
I think you probably should do that. Oh my goodness.
All right, I'm putting a Google Doc in Jen's folder in the drive. So I will post the links directly in that document so they can just click on them and go right to her folder.
Awesome.
And I've labeled it better links. Okay.
All right. Jillian, you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay. So we're going to talk to you a little bit about unified PE, unified activities. And I'm going to put this link in the chat for you. It's going to take you to a Jamboard. If you have not used Jamboards before, I will just share with you what you need to do. You're going to grab a little sticky note, which is right over here on the left. And you're going to answer the 3 questions on these next 3 slides. The first one is, the first one is, what do you think you know about unified PE and sports? Just what do you think? What do you know about? Maybe you already are rocking it. You already got it good. And then the second question is, where did you, I don't know my stuff. Where did you learn this information, right? How do you know it's valid? And then the third question is, what questions do you have about unified activities? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and give you a few minutes to place a sticky note on each of the walls. And then we will start with a little video that Jillian has. I know nothing. Perfect. Yay. This has to be my favorite.
I have a question on Jamboard. Where do you get the little sticky note to drag over to write on?
Oh, I'll show you. So you see where my little hand is over here on the left?
Okay, wait 1 second. Let me get back to, oh, okay.
Click on that. It's a sticky note.
So it's the 4th one down. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I think I'm the only one that posted on the other walls. There's more than one wall, so you have to scroll at the top.
Thank you. Right, so please put your questions here too, right? Like what questions do you have? That's on the 3rd wall. Go to a different, Ashley, go to a different page. Maybe it'll let you go to a different page. Too many people on a Jamboard.
Never heard of such a thing.
Too many people in the jam. No stress. once you do it, go ahead and exit out. So that way maybe it'll free up some space. Or don't do anything at all, whatever.
Can you just put like a check mark next to one you agree with? It's already done?
Sure, absolutely.
How do you do that?
So do you see right here on the left, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 little thing?
One. Okay.
It's a 6th one down. It's like a little circle. So you can just drop, right? And you can make it smaller or bigger. Pop.
Okay.
So much fun with Jamboards. It's okay. There's no right or wrong. Everything's great. It's Wednesday afternoon and it's summertime. Like, please, it's fabulous.
I don't think I'm on the right Jamboard to do it. I think I'm on the presentation. Never mind.
It's okay, Tim.
I don't know much about it at all.
All good, man. Don't even stress. You can throw your question in the chat if you've got a question. So we're looking at what do you know? And a lot of people don't know much. They know that it has to do with Special Olympics, yes. Rec basketball leagues, bringing students with and without disabilities together, building relationships, absolutely, absolutely, all of those great things. Yeah, inclusive environment, right? Yep, combining general ed and special ed students, yep. Yeah, no, it does have a lot to do with Special Olympics. And playing and competing together, 100%. Awesome, awesome. All right, and we've got some questions here. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and I'm gonna let, unless Jillian, do I have the video? I have the video.
Yeah, you can go ahead and cue it because you have it up. If not, I have it too.
Okay.
I'll go for it.
All right, so while you guys are kind of thinking over that stuff, I am going to play this little video that Jillian and her crew put together about unified sports and PE.
Jen, can you enlarge that by any chance?
I don't know. Yes.
I'm Stu Manu. What's your favorite thing about Unified? Playing basketball. What's one word you would use to describe Unified? Shoes hoops. Okay.
Good job.
What makes Unified PE different from other classes? I get to dance and be with other friends. What is one word you would use to describe Unified? Fun. Thank you. What is your name?
My name is Claire.
What is one thing you would like students to know about Unified?
You can say uniform track is for special needs people. You can come over and help them and be the part of the team. And you can have a great time. And
can you hear it now? Okay, I'll go back to the beginning. I'm sorry about that. I didn't know you couldn't hear it. So let's go back to the beginning and make sure everybody can hear. Thank you for telling me. Yeah.
I'm Stu Manu. What's your favorite thing about Unified? Playing basketball. What's one word you would use to describe Unified? Shoes hoops. Okay.
Good job.
What makes Unified PE different from other classes? I get to dance and be with other friends. What is one word you would use to describe Unified? Fun. Thank you. What is your name?
my name is Claire.
What is one thing you would like students to know about Unified?
You can say uniform track is for special needs people. You can come over and help them and be the part of the team. And you can have a great time and then you can tell by them uniform track is for special Olympics.
What's your name?
Stepan.
Why do you participate in Unified?
I like being with my friends.
What is one word you would use to describe Unified?
Unified.
How would you like to see the Unified Sports Program continue to grow at Stonebridge?
Oh my God, I would really like there to be a lot more sports, not just basketball and track, you know, maybe like soccer, football, flag football, stuff like that. Events that like natural kids, like that like coming to sports events, like our actual teams. Like, I want there to be more people join in, with the Buds Club too. I want people just to help, think of the kids, not themselves, Because I know there's a bunch of kids in Stonebridge that don't even do athletics or anything, that just go straight home and just do nothing, just come out here, come help the kids, because, you never know anybody's situation until you're in their situation. So I want more kids to start joining Unified. I want more sports.
Joel, what did you gain from being a part of the Stonebridge Unified basketball team?
What did I gain? Okay. So, first off, I gained a lot of love for the kids, because they all just grew on me naturally, from trying to run somebody over. Zach hitting every single shot in the book, you know what I'm saying? But I bonded with the kids, bonded with the teachers and staff, wanted to learn how to put myself in their position, help them out.
How do you plan to grow the program here at Stonebridge and continue to build a positive, inclusive culture?
By allowing all students that participate in Unified programs to participate in regular sporting programs, and to also allow for recognition from students and staff members during Unified events.
Okay, Kira, why did you decide to join and help start the Unified program here at Stonebridge?
I decided to join Unified because I wanted to make sure every student at Stonebridge was able to have the high school experience of sports.
Awesome. Do you want to go ahead, Jillian?
Yes, so thank you for showing that, Jen. That video actually was done. So this year was the piloted program for Unified PE, and Jen and I have kind of been going back and forth about trying to get Unified more involved in our respective counties. And for Stonebridge, they moved forward piloting it this year. And then when COVID hit, it was kind of like, what do we do? And the guidance counselor at the high school was like, we're just going to move forward with it. And this kind of goes back to what Dr. Hagel said. I was trying to get a perspective from the kids this year on what they actually gained from it, because a lot of it was done through the computer screen. And this again goes back to what Jen said, it's a whole different world. And then when you're back in person and some are in line and online and some are in person and you're in behind a mask, sweating for sure, Jen, and trying to do so many things at once. By doing this video, we were actually promoting the program at the school. So we showed that video during a school advisory. But getting the feedback from the kids was, even though we only had 2 general education kids in unified PE this year, every student that was involved gained so much out of that one class. And we weren't able to perform and do our unified teams that we had done the year before. But it is a great program. It is something that I think Jen and I truly are passionate about. So we just wanted to bring light to it and offer up some questions and see if, well, it looks like there's a unified relay at the meet. So first time I heard about them. So we want to spread, the word that this program exists, and you can start the program. It's through Special Olympics, and Jen, correct me if I'm wrong, every district has an advisor of Special Olympics that you can reach out to, or a regional director.
A regional director. And it really, the best part about this, and one of the things that the first year that I did unified sports, I really didn't do it the way that I should have done it, was to put the kids in charge of it. So this is student run, student owned. I'm just kind of like there to make sure that things are going the right way, but they're in charge of planning the activities. And for example, we had unified track and field at my school, and of course this year threw everything out the window, but next year we'll have bocce and basketball and unified track and field. And so there's just opportunities for more students to get involved. And one of the things we did this year in an effort to kind of keep our students connected was to do something I called Marlin PE TV, where I had all of my students who have been involved in Special Olympics in the past and those who wanted to get involved, created short little videos for my adaptive PE students, teaching them a skill. Now, granted, many of them did not do the skill properly. I'm going to go right on a limb and say that, but what I will say is that it was a way for them to connect with each other. And so my kids in my adapted class love seeing their friends who they knew from track last year on the big screen, or another kid from school, like a Bayside kid. So it was just another way to connect. It didn't matter that it wasn't 100% perfect. What mattered was that we were building those relationships. So that way, when we come back in the fall, we can pick up kind of where we left off. But the key really is to make sure that you are giving the students ownership in this and allowing them to kind of take charge of this. Tim, did you have a question?
No, it's not so much a question. So I work at Glasgow Middle School in Fairfax County, and we have a unified basketball team that we had put together by our special ed department, which was Keely Norris and Caitlin Charbonneau, who's now over at Falls Church. And so we have a basketball thing at the end, or towards the end of the year, called Hoop It Up Night. It honors a teacher who passed away from cancer years before I got there. But so this past couple of years before COVID hit us, they came over to me and they said, "Hey, we have a unified team. Do you mind if we play in the Hoop It Up Night?" I said, definitely, because what we usually had was 6th grade girls, 6th grade boys, 7th grade girls, 7th grade boys. And then we had this intermission for about 20 minutes or so, where we had, people just hang around, get food, listen to music, whatever, before 8th grade came. So instead of doing that intermission, we ripped out the intermission and put the unified team in there. So we had the unified team be able to play for that 20-minute period. So instead, it now went 6th grade boys, 6th grade girls, all the way through, and then a unified thing. And the parents loved it. You should have seen all the kids were there cheering on their friends, cheering on. It was the greatest thing to see. And so this year, when we get back into the schools, thank God, we're bringing it back.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Thanks for sharing that. And they really, the part of it is that kids don't know about some of these opportunities. At my school, we have a volunteer requirement. And so students are constantly looking for ways to get involved, but this becomes more than that. They really become friends. Like, it's a whole thing, and they've never had the opportunity before. And so it's so great. They'll eat lunch together. A couple of years ago, a group of girls did other girls' hair for prom. Like they take it to other places. And so giving the kids the opportunities to do that, it's what it's all about, right? Those opportunities. And so we have found a lot of success. And if there's any track and field coaches on here, I want to tell you one thing that is really, really neat that COVID really screwed up for us last year, but it doesn't matter. We're going to try again this year. If you are familiar with the Penn Relays, it's, you know, the oldest track and field event in the United States. And it is, they have a unified section in the Penn Relays. And so that was an opportunity that we got accepted, and we were going to go take our unified 4x100 relay team. And then of course, COVID, and we got sidelined. But there are so many opportunities out there. Some of these big track meets have opportunities for unified teams to come and perform. And in Virginia Beach, Sheila, where are we at with the class that we created? Yeah, there it is. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, just put it there. So we wrote a proposal for an elective advanced PE course. They put it on hold because of COVID. So I'm pushing it back through the process as we speak.
Yeah, and just to piggyback on what Jen said there, it's about building relationships, and some of you may not know that it exists in your county, or just finding out the opportunity. We did our track meets alongside the home track meets. And we also, some of your basketball tournaments may be off on a weekend in Fairfax or somewhere locally, but we were able to play, much like Tim said, at a high school basketball game. The teams, both of our unified teams at the high school, we played at halftime. And the kids were amazed because you had a stand full of spectators cheering for them. And it just really, you know, they all get to know the kids. So it provides more opportunities for socialization outside of just that environment.
Yeah, and if you can get like a neighboring high school to get involved, we have
the time is new.
3
it's time for lunch.
In Virginia
Hands.
Beach. We have 3. We have Princess Anne High School, Bayside High School, and Green Run. So when we do our track meets, we're able to have everybody together to be able to participate against each other. And Jillian and I can share you the links to the Special Olympics people so that you can get involved. They're wonderful, and they will help you 100%. And they'll send you stuff, and they really want this to get spread. Virginia Beach, it's more up north that we see a lot of more involvement than we do down here where we are, but we're working on it. So we'll share with you some stuff that you can use to get started at your school.
So we'll stay on to answer questions. I did put the link in the chat for the final survey for today. Tomorrow we have 2 more fantastic presenters. We have Joy, is it Engstrom? Engstrom from Loudoun County Public Schools. She's an autism specialist. And then we have Liz Metz in the afternoon, and you will just love her presentation. Lots of hands-on and equipment that you guys had requested a little more of. So good news, we'll meet that request. So as soon as you grab the survey, feel free to check out. We appreciate your time. If you want to stay on and ask questions, feel free to do that as well. Thanks, everybody. Have a great afternoon.
I got a question for you. When I was looking through your presentation, when is there a time that you look at individual goals for your special needs students during your adaptive time?
You're talking to me, Max?
Yes.
Just want to make sure. Okay. So, you know, it depends, right? So this year, when you get your IEPs, you're looking at everything ahead of time, right? So
Correct.
You know what needs to be addressed, right? So when you're creating your lessons, you know who you're targeting by creating specific things. And so you can kind of address that. And I just have like a little list of things next to my thing, you know. But this year, right, like we really weren't measuring progress on goals because of our virtual environment. Next year, when we're back in person, the classes, at least that I teach, are small enough. And like I said, I have a co-teacher and a para. And so there's a lot of hands. that really assist with making sure we can address specific needs of a student and like give that high quality feedback when somebody's doing something, because we know we need to make it a little bit different. Did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay.
Definitely a lot of information, but I plan on pulling it all together and starting this up at my school. We're just sort of in shambles right now. So this whole week has been just wonderful, whether other people in my county use it or not, but my school's jumping in with both feet. So thanks for your energy and knowledge. Good stuff.
Thanks for being here, Matt.